I knew something was off the moment Lucy went quiet in the back seat. She usually talked nonstop on long drives about her teacher, about the glitter she wanted to put on the cookies, about whether Grandpa would remember that she hated peppermint. But as we pulled out of Arvada and headed toward the foothills near Golden, she pressed her forehead to the window and watched the lights pass without a word. "You okay, sweetheart?" I asked, keeping my voice light. She nodded too quickly. "I'm just thinking." That answer was too old for a 7-year-old. The Sloan house appeared the same way it always had: big, polished, confident. My parents liked things that looked solid from the outside. I parked, turned off the engine, and rested my hands on the steering wheel longer than necessary, as if that could delay what came next. This is an original story written by the author of the Revenge Amber channel, built from familiar social issues with the purpose of helping viewers reflect, heal, and draw meaningful lessons. The content is not intended to depict any real individual. Lucy reached for my hand before I opened the door. Her palm was warm, her grip tighter than usual. "Remember," I said softly, leaning close to her, "we stay together tonight." She looked up at me. "Even if they forget, I won't," I said, and I meant it. Inside, my mother Vivian appeared almost immediately, her smile already in place. She kissed my cheek, stepped back, and looked Lucy up and down like she was checking a list. "You're taller," she said to Lucy, her tone polite, distant. Lucy smiled. "I grew 2 inches. My teacher measured." "That's nice," Vivian replied, already turning away. "Your coat can go on the rack." I caught Lucy's expression shift small, almost invisible. She hung up her coat without another word. My father, Edward, stood near the fireplace, holding court. His laugh carried across the room, confident and loud, drawing people toward him like gravity. When he saw me, he raised his glass slightly. "Catherine," he said, "you made it." "We did," I replied, placing my hand on Lucy's shoulder. He nodded once, his eyes moving past her. "Good. Everyone's here." "Not everyone," I thought. But I said nothing. Lucy leaned toward me and whispered, "Can I sit with the other kids?" I followed her gaze. A cluster of cousins laughed near the tree, showing off sweaters and ornaments. No one had noticed Lucy yet. "Of course," I said. "Go on." She took 2 steps, then hesitated. She looked back at me, searching my face. I smiled. "I'm right here." She went, slowly. No one moved to make space. My brother Michael caught my eye from across the room. His smile was careful, apologetic. He lifted his shoulders slightly. A silent, "I'm sorry, I don't know what to do." I nodded once. I had learned a long time ago not to expect rescue. Vivian returned, lowering her voice as she stood beside me. "Edward's in a mood tonight," she said. "Try not to take things personally." "I usually don't," I replied. "That's the problem." Her smile tightened. "Let's just have a nice evening." Edward clapped his hands near the tree. "All right, everyone. Let's get started." The children gathered quickly, excitement rising. Lucy stood at the edge of the group, half in, half out, rocking slightly on her heels. I felt the familiar urge to step in, to smooth things over, to make it easier for everyone else. Instead, I stayed where I was and watched my daughter. If you've ever found yourself holding your breath in a room full of people who are supposed to love you, you know this feeling. Stay with me. What happened next is why I finally stopped pretending. Edward stood in front of the tree like it belonged to him. One hand wrapped around a glass, the other digging into a red gift bag. The children pressed closer, voices rising, feet shuffling. Lucy hovered at the edge, close enough to hope, far enough to be missed. "All right," Edward said, smiling wide. "Let's see who's been paying attention this year." A doll went to one cousin, a game set to another. Each name was followed by laughter, Applause, a comment about how fast they were growing or how smart they were getting. Edward fed on it, the room bending toward his approval. Lucy took a step forward when the bag grew lighter. She glanced back at me, eyes bright, then forward again. Edward reached in and pulled out a small box. He turned it in his hand, looking around the room, letting the moment stretch. "This one," he said, "is for children who understand how things work in this family." The room quieted. Lucy's smile held. Unsure. She waited. Edward's eyes landed on her, then slid past her like she wasn't there. He handed the box to a child behind her. Lucy froze. Vivian shifted near the doorway, arms crossed. She didn't look at Lucy. She didn't look at me. Edward cleared his throat. "Not everyone earns a place at the table," he said. Louder now. "Traditions matter." Lucy swallowed, her hands clenched at her sides. "I helped make cookies," she said softly. "I didn't eat any before dinner." A few adults laughed, unsure if they were supposed to. Edward tilted his head. "This isn't about cookies." I stepped forward. "Edward." He ignored me. "Some children need to learn." He continued. "That belonging comes with expectations." Lucy's breath hitched. She looked up at Vivian. Grandma Vivian didn't answer. Her gaze stayed fixed on the counter, as if the granite required her full attention. Michael took a half step toward us, then stopped. His wife reached for his arm and shook her head. Edward set the empty bag down. "That's enough," he said. "We're moving on." Lucy's face crumpled. She tried to hold it together, pressing her lips tight, the way she did when she was determined not to cry in public. The sound that slipped out anyway was small and wounded, barely there. Something inside me went still. I crossed the room and knelt in front of her. "Look at me," I said quietly. She did. Tears slid down her cheeks without a sound. "You didn't do anything wrong," I said. "Not one thing." Edward scoffed. "Catherine, don't make a scene." I stood, keeping my hand on Lucy's shoulder. "This isn't a scene. This is a line." Vivian finally looked up. "Let's not overreact." I met her eyes. "You already did. You just chose silence." The room felt tight, like everyone was waiting for someone else to fix it. I didn't wait. I took Lucy's hand and turned toward the door. No one stopped us. No one spoke. Behind us, the tree lights blinked on and off, steady and uncaring as we stepped away together. The cold hit Lucy first. She buried her face into my coat the moment we stepped outside, her small hands gripping the fabric like it might disappear if she let go. I wrapped my arms around her without saying anything, because words would have broken the careful control I was holding together by instinct alone. I tried. She whispered into my chest. I was good. I crouched, so we were eye level. "You were more than good," I said. "You were kind. And that is not something anyone gets to take from you." Her shoulders shook once, then again. I lifted her into my arms and carried her toward the car. Behind us, the front door opened. "Catherine," my mother called. Her voice was sharp now, stripped of the polite edge. "You're being dramatic." I didn't turn around. Edward's voice followed, louder. "You're teaching her to walk away instead of learning respect." I stopped with my hand on the car door and finally faced them. Lucy stayed pressed against me, her face hidden. "You don't get to lecture me about respect," I said. My voice didn't rise. That was the part that startled them. "You just humiliated a child." Edward's jaw tightened. "This is my house." "And this is my daughter," I replied. "That's the only authority that matters tonight." Vivian stepped onto the porch, folding her arms. "You could have handled this privately." I met her gaze. "You had that option. You chose not to." Michael appeared behind them, his face pale. "Catherine," he said quietly. "Let's just talk." I shook my head. "You've been talking for years." I'm done listening. Lucy shifted in my arms and looked toward the house. Are we in trouble? No, I said immediately. We're safe. Edward laughed once, short and dismissive. You'll cool off. You always do. Something in his tone confirmed what I already knew. He believed this was temporary. He believed I would come back and smooth things over, the way I always had. I opened the car door and buckled Lucy into her seat. She watched me with wide eyes, still waiting for someone to say it had all been a misunderstanding. When I shut the door and turned back, Edward was already retreating inside. Vivian lingered a moment longer. You're overreacting, she said, softer now. Think about what you're throwing away. I thought about Lucy's face by the tree. I thought about the silence that followed. I said. Then I got into the driver's seat and pulled away. Lucy sniffed once. Are we still a family? I reached over and squeezed her hand. We are, I said. Just not the one inside that house. The road stretched out ahead of us, dark and quiet. My hands were steady on the wheel. Inside my chest, something old and brittle finally gave way, not with a crack, but with a release. Lucy fell asleep before we reached home, her breathing evening out as if her body had decided it was done carrying the night. I carried her inside, tucked her under her blanket, and stood there longer than necessary, listening. When I finally stepped into the kitchen, the quiet pressed close. I opened my laptop. The draft proposal sat at the top of my inbox, flagged and untouched. A phased renovation for my parents' house, the kind of work that kept my crews busy for months. Structural repairs, interior updates, exterior restoration. The total estimate read $1,600,000, broken into careful stages to make it feel manageable. I didn't hesitate. I forwarded the proposal to Mark, my project manager, and typed a single line. We are withdrawing the Sloan renovation proposal effective immediately. The reply came faster than I expected. Catherine, is there an issue? I typed back. There is. My phone rang. I let it ring twice before answering. Talk to me, Mark said. He had known me since the early days, since I showed up with a clipboard and borrowed confidence. Did something happen tonight? Yes, I said, and it's final. There was a pause. This was a significant project. I know exactly what it was. I said, which is why I'm stepping away. Do you want me to frame it as scheduling conflicts? No, I said. Say we're no longer available. Nothing more. Another pause. Understood. When the call ended, I stared at the screen until the email confirmation came through. Proposal withdrawn. File closed. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady. My phone buzzed again. A text from Vivian. Let's not do anything we can't undo. I set the phone face down. A minute later, Edward called. I let it go to voicemail. His message was clipped and confident. You'll regret making decisions when you're emotional. I opened my email once more and archived the message thread. Then I opened a new folder and moved the entire Sloan project into it. The folder was labeled Closed. Lucy patted into the doorway in her socks. Hair rumpled. Mom, I turned. Hey, did I wake you? She shook her head. I had a bad dream. I knelt and opened my arms. She walked into them without hesitation. Are we still going back? She asked quietly. No, I said. We're not. She leaned her head against my shoulder. Okay, that was all she said. No bargaining, no fear, just trust. I held her there, my chin resting on her hair, while something in the distance shifted, not loudly, not publicly, just enough that the ground felt different beneath my feet. The first message came from someone I barely spoke to anymore. Are you okay? It arrived mid-morning while I was packing Lucy's lunch. I stared at the screen, confused, then typed back, yes. Why 3 dots appeared, disappeared. Then another message followed. I just saw something. Call me when you can. I didn't call. I set the phone down and zipped Lucy's backpack. Mom, she said, watching me carefully. Did I do something bad last night? No, I said immediately. You didn't. She nodded, but her eyes lingered on my face as if she were checking for cracks. When she left for school, I sat at the kitchen table and picked up my phone again. There were 6 missed calls now. Michael, an aunt, a cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. Then a text from Michael finally broke through. They're saying you overreacted. There's a video. I called him. It's already spreading, he said as soon as he answered. His voice was tight. Someone filmed Dad during the gift thing. Not the whole part. Just enough. Enough for them to spin it. He said, they're saying you stormed out and made Lucy cry. Mom's telling people it was about discipline. My chest tightened. Whose people? Church friends, neighbors, a parents' group online. I closed my eyes. Lucy's face was on that video. Yes, he said quietly. But so was Dad's voice. I hung up and opened the link Michael sent. The clip was shaky, cropped too tight. Edward's voice was clear, calm, confident. Lucy stood half in frame, small and still. The comments scrolled beneath it. That seems harsh. Kids need structure. Why is the mother making this public? Then another comment appeared, newer, longer. I was there. That child was excluded in front of everyone. I refreshed the page. The post had been shared again. And again. My phone rang. Vivian this time. I answered. This is getting out of hand. She said, you need to help us shut this down. I didn't post it. I replied, but you caused it. She said sharply. People are asking questions. They should. I said. She lowered her voice. Edward is furious. He says this is damaging his reputation. I looked at the video again. It's his voice. Context matters, she snapped. You know that. I know what Lucy heard, I said, and so do a lot of other people now. There was a pause. You're enjoying this, she said. No, I replied. I'm done hiding. The call ended without goodbye. By afternoon, my inbox filled with messages I hadn't asked for. Some were kind. Some were cruel. One came from a parent at Lucy's school. If you need support, I'm here. I stared at that one the longest. When Lucy came home, she dropped her backpack and looked up at me. Some kids said they saw my grandpa on their mom's phone. I knelt in front of her. And how did that make you feel? She thought for a moment. Like people finally saw. I pulled her into a hug, holding her tighter than usual. Outside, the world was talking. Inside our house, the silence was different now. It wasn't hiding anything anymore. Michael showed up just after dinner, hands shoved deep into his coat pockets like he wasn't sure he was allowed inside. Lucy glanced at him from the couch. Hi, Uncle Michael? Hey, kiddo, he said, forcing a smile. You grow another inch since Christmas. She shrugged. Maybe. I told her she could finish her homework in her room. She hesitated, then went, closing the door behind her. Michael stayed standing. You can sit, I said. He didn't. I saw the comments. He said instead, I saw what people are saying about them. And what are they saying to you? I asked. His jaw tightened. That I should talk to you. That I should fix this. I crossed my arms. Is that why you're here? He exhaled slowly. I'm here because I didn't fix anything for years. And I should have. The words landed heavier than anything he'd said before. I knew. He continued. Not everything, but enough. The way Dad talked about you when you weren't there. The way Mom decided who mattered and who didn't. I held his gaze. And you stayed. He nodded once. I told myself keeping the peace was helping. I told myself if I stayed close, maybe I could soften things. Did it work? I asked. No, he said quietly. It just taught them there were no consequences. He finally sat down, elbows on his knees, hands clasped like he was bracing for impact. When Lucy was born, Dad said you'd come crawling back in a year. When you didn't, he said you were trying to punish them. I never challenged it. I swallowed. You brought groceries. You showed up. And then I went home. He said, and I let them keep telling the story their way. Silence stretched between us. They're scared now, he added. Not about Lucy. About how this looks. I nodded. That doesn't surprise me. Michael rubbed his face. There's more. I waited. They've been calling people, lining them up, making sure everyone hears the same version. He looked at me, eyes sharp now. They're preparing for you to come back and apologize. I shook my head. I'm not. I know, he said. That's why I'm here. He straightened, something resolved settling into his posture. I'm done being neutral. Whatever they try next, I'm not covering for them anymore. I studied him for a long moment. This wasn't an apology. It was a line he was finally choosing to cross. Lucy's door opened. She peeked out. Is everything okay? Michael looked at her and nodded. Yeah, I should have said that sooner. She considered him, then walked over and hugged him without hesitation. He closed his eyes, just for a second, and held on. We went back for one reason only. Lucy's backpack sat by the front door of my parents' house, forgotten in the rush of that night. Her school tablet was inside. So was the project she'd been talking about all week. I just need my stuff, Lucy said from the back seat. Then we can leave. We won't stay, I said. Not even a minute longer than we have to. Michael drove. He didn't argue. He didn't offer reassurance. His jaw stayed tight the entire way up. The house was full again. Cars lined the driveway. Lights were on in every room. Vivian liked gatherings when she needed witnesses. Inside, voices overlapped, coffee cups clinked. Laughter sounded forced, too loud at the edges. Edward stood near the fireplace, speaking with the confidence of someone who believed control could be restored if he spoke long enough. We're all emotional on holidays, he was saying. Catherine has always taken things personally. Vivian nodded beside him. We've supported her for years. She just doesn't see it. I stayed near the hallway, out of sight. Michael's shoulders tensed. Lucy tugged my sleeve. Mom, my tablet's over there. She pointed toward the den. Go get it, I said. We'll be right here. She slipped away quietly. Edward continued. The video was taken out of context. Children misinterpret things, Vivian added. Lucy is sensitive. Catherine encourages that. My hands curled into fists. Michael leaned toward me. They're rewriting it already. A sound drifted down the hall. Lucy's voice. Bright. Excited. Hi, everyone, she said. Clear as day. I turned sharply. Lucy stood in the den doorway holding her tablet. The screen glowed. A small red dot pulsed in the corner. Vivian's smile faltered. Lucy, sweetheart, what are you doing? Lucy beamed. My school project. We're supposed to share real family traditions. Edward frowned. Turn that off. Lucy looked at him, confused. It's already on. Michael moved beside me. His eyes locked on the screen. That's live. A ripple of unease moved through the room. Vivian stepped forward. Honey, give that to me. Lucy tightened her grip. Mrs. Turner said we should show how our families talk to each other. Edward's voice sharpened. Enough. Lucy's smile faded. She glanced at me. Mom, I stepped forward, placing myself between her and them. It's okay, I said. You didn't do anything wrong. Vivian's voice dropped. You need to stop this right now. Michael spoke before I could. No more private conversations. Edward turned on him. Stay out of this. Michael didn't move. You've hidden behind privacy long enough. Lucy looked between us, then back at her tablet. Grandma, she said softly. Why don't you like me? The room froze. Vivian's mouth opened, closed. Her face drained of color. "I never said that," she replied quickly. Lucy frowned. "You didn't look at me." "And Grandpa said only good kids get presents." Edward barked. "That's not what I meant." Lucy's voice shook, but she didn't stop. "Did I do something bad?" Comments began scrolling faster. Names I didn't recognize. "Messages stacking over each other," Michael whispered. "People are watching." Vivian lunged for the tablet. I stepped in front of Lucy instantly. "Do not touch her," I said. Edward slammed his hand on the table. "You're humiliating us." "No," I said, my voice steady. "You did that." Lucy leaned into my side, still holding the tablet. "Mom," she whispered, "they're saying things." I glanced at the screen. "That's not okay. Why is no one protecting her? Someone stop this." Edward pointed at the door. "This ends now." Michael shook his head. "It already ended. You just didn't notice." Lucy lifted her chin, small but steady. "I just wanted to show my class." I wrapped my arm around her shoulders. The red dot still pulsed. The truth was no longer waiting for permission. The room didn't erupt right away. It fractured in pieces. Someone muttered that this shouldn't be happening. Another voice said this was family business. A chair scraped against the floor as an ant stood up, then sat back down like she wasn't sure which side of history she was on. Vivian recovered first. She always did. "This is inappropriate," she said sharply, pointing at Lucy's tablet. "You're broadcasting a private misunderstanding." Michael answered before I could. "You called it private so no one could hear it." Edward stepped closer, his voice dropping. "Turn it off. Catherine, you're hurting your own child." Lucy pressed her forehead into my side. I felt her breathing speed up. I looked straight at him. She was hurt before the camera was on. Vivian's voice cracked, not with guilt, but with fear. People are going to think terrible things. They already know terrible things. I said, "They're just hearing them from you instead of from us." Lucy lifted the tablet slightly. "Mom," she whispered, "my teacher is watching." That landed harder than anything else. Vivian's composure slipped. "Give me that," she snapped, reaching again. Michael blocked her path without raising his voice. "Don't!" Edward's face flushed red. "You're choosing strangers over your own family." I didn't look away. "I'm choosing my daughter," a cousin near the window said quietly. "The comments are getting worse." Lucy's hands trembled. I placed my palm over hers, steadying the tablet without taking it away. "We can stop," I told her softly. "Anytime you want." She shook her head. I didn't lie. Edward scoffed. "You don't understand what you're doing." Lucy looked up at him. "I understand that I felt bad." Silence swallowed the room. Vivian's voice dropped to a whisper. "Catherine, think about the fallout." I said, "For years." Michael turned to the room. "You all heard what they said last night. You're hearing it again now. Decide what you want to do with that." Some people looked away. A few stepped back. One aunt wiped her eyes. Edward straightened, clinging to authority. "This ends now. We will explain this properly." I nodded once. "You will try?" Lucy leaned into me. "Can we go home now?" "Yes," I said. "We're done here." Edward pointed toward the tablet. "Turn it off." Lucy pressed the screen. The red dot disappeared. The quiet that followed was different, not controlled, not curated. As we walked toward the door, Vivian said my name, softer now. "You didn't have to do this." I stopped and faced her. "I did. Outside." Lucy squeezed my hand. "Am I in trouble?" "No," I said. "You told the truth." She nodded, as if that settled something deep inside her. Behind us, the house stayed lit. Inside, they would argue about damage and appearances and who to blame. None of it followed us. The truth had already stepped into the open, and it wasn't going back inside. 6 months later, Lucy learned how to plant tomatoes. Michael knelt beside her in the dirt behind our new place outside Golden, showing her how deep to press the seedlings. She listened carefully, serious in the way she got when something mattered. "Not too tight," he said. "They need room to breathe." She nodded. "Like people." He smiled at that, a real one this time. I watched from the porch, a mug cooling in my hands. The house wasn't big. It didn't impress anyone. It felt honest. That mattered more than square footage ever had. Lucy ran up to me with dirt on her fingers. "Mom, Uncle Michael says plants grow better when you talk to them." "I believe that," I said. She leaned closer to the garden and whispered, "You're safe here." Michael looked away, swallowing hard. Later that week, Lucy stood at the front of her classroom holding a single page. Her teacher nodded encouragingly. Lucy cleared her throat. "My essay is called The Family You Choose," she said. She read slowly, carefully, about people who stay, about love that doesn't disappear when things get uncomfortable. When she finished, the room was quiet. Then one parent started clapping, then another. Lucy found me in the crowd afterward. "Did I do okay?" I knelt and hugged her. "You told the truth." She smiled, satisfied with that answer. That night, as I tucked her into bed, she asked, "Are we done hiding now?" "Yes," I said. "Forever." She rolled onto her side and closed her eyes. I sat alone in the living room for a while, thinking about how silence used to feel like survival. Now it felt unnecessary. If you're listening to this and you've ever been told to keep the peace at the cost of your own dignity, know this choosing truth changes things. It changed everything for us. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who might need it. Tell me where you're listening from and what family means to you now. Lucy's door creaked open slightly. "Mom, I'm here." She smiled sleepily. "I like our family." "So do I," I said. And this time, there was nothing left to prove.